Hey, oh, there we I guess I had to speak. Hey, welcome. I'm Curt Tofteland, founder of Shakespeare Behind Bars, co-founder of the Shakespeare in Prison Network. Delighted that you could join us. Oh, there's there today. I want to just give a big shout out to Scott Jackson, Shakespeare at Notre Dame, who is behind the scenes. You'll see him in a bit, but couldn't do this without him. And also to the committee and for all of you for being here. This is a grand experiment. This is the first of a number of these that we're going to do, and we're getting ready for our October to November conference that will be virtual. And so we're hosting these to learn how to master a bit of the platform, but also to just get lots of different pieces of information out there so we can figure out what it is that we're going to offer in the October to November Shakespeare in Prison Conference virtual. A lot of stuff has happened in our world since we recorded this. And so I want to hold some space for that and honor that. Scott will have more to share about that at the end of this. And I just want to put the words of one of the Shakespeare Behind Bars alumni, returned citizen, one of our very, very successful alumni. He wrote a poem, and I'll just read it. These are his words. This is Brother Floyd by Larry Lucas. You don't know me, Brother Floyd. The youngsters call me OG, Larry, Unc, Mr. Larry. You can call me Larry. You're a G. If you were here, still in the flesh, you would be proud of yourself. Your mama would be and is proud of you. She heard her babies cry. I'm proud of you. You probably know by now, as you, I am, and the angels are looking down. You, sir, are changing the world. The world saw you as a living sacrifice, bruh. A 2020 lynching. Your death was not in vain. From coast to coast, from city to city, and countries all over the world, we are saying your name. And yes, your life really mattered. I love you, man. You died for me too. And you don't know me. I cried for you. I felt your ascension. When you called for moms, she said, "Here I am, son. Come on. I got you. I am. He said, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. We saw your last breath. Rest in paradise, Brother Floyd. One love, your life mattered, my life matters, all life matter. You are going to help us be the change we want to see in the world. Appreciate ya. P.S. Tell Jesus, appreciate him too. And now Scott will join us.
Hey everyone, thanks for that, Curt. It was beautiful. At our last community meeting, I started with a simple breathing technique in pranayama that really helped us to bring our hearts into this conversation, to just lift us out of our brains, put us into our hearts. We've all been staring at screens now for what seems like eons. And in respect and love and support of all of the strife that's going on in the world right now, and especially to our communities, our POC communities, I wanted to share with you a simple technique for calming our adrenal glands. And right now we're all kind of in this hyper-adrenalized state. And so there's a simple technique that we can do. We just take our pinkies and bring them together like this, okay? And you can't really see me right now, but you're gonna wanna bring them right in front of your navel here and pull them apart, yeah? And then we're gonna take deep diaphragmatic breaths, breath of fire, with our eyes closed, so it looks like this. You see the bowl of my belly going in and out. And we're going to do that for about 1 minute. Pause, and then we're going to come back, and what we're doing is we're heating the adrenal glands up as we do that. And as you're pulling your pinkies, you can find that place right around the kidneys where there's pressure as you pull your pinkies apart. And then we'll come back and we'll do what's called cannon breath to kind of cool those adrenals off, and just take a moment of silence and reflection of how miraculous it is that we're here together, and how we might continue to support one another as we move forward as well. So please join me. We're going to close our eyes, pinkies together, down here by the navel. And it's the breath of fire, so it's quick inhale and exhale, and we begin. And pause and just relax. Notice any sensations that are running through you right now. Might feel tingling in your hands. Might feel that pressure back by the kidneys and the adrenals. Don't analyze, just allow yourself to just be in this moment. Give yourself permission, that blessed permission to just be. And now we'll take this to a cannon breath. And what we're doing with the cannon breath is we're opening our mouth like we're going to whistle almost. We're not going to bellow out the cheeks as we breathe forcefully in and out here. It's going to look like this. And this is a very cooling breath. This cools the liver, cools the adrenal glands. So we'll do this for another minute and just notice the changes, the subtle changes that happen now. Because you might even be sweating a little bit from that first exercise. So hands then just down at your sides, on your lap if you're sitting down, and eyes closed, focused on the third eye here. And relax, release. Keep that focus on the third eye, eyes in and up. Couple nice deep breaths. Just hyperoxygenated the blood, and just let that relaxation pass over you. This is something that you can do for minutes and minutes at a time. That's really good when you find yourself just getting to that place of anxiety in your heart, in your brain, and feeling the tension of your body start to overtake you. So thank you very much for that, and I will pass this back over to Curt.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. So let's jump in and just have the panelists that you viewed introduce themselves, and they'll come online. Laurie.
William James Association, the Prison Arts Project. We've been doing art programs in, there I am. We're doing art programs in prisons throughout California. We're in 17 prisons right now. And we're also doing some correspondence outside of anyway, we're working with the new reality of having to deal with doing stuff on paper instead of in person, and it's a big shift.
Thank you, Laurie. Alma.
Hello. Am I there?
I hear you.
Hear me? Start the video. All right.
There we are.
Hello. Welcome to the new tech world. Hi, people. My name is Alma Robinson. Nice to see so many friends on this Zoom call. Hello. And I'm the director of California Lawyers for the Arts. I've been working in the arts and corrections area with Laurie, who you just met at William James, and with many of you on this Zoom meeting for a number of years. We've had some success in restoring arts programs in California prisons, less success trying to expand programs in jails, some success trying to expand programs nationally, working with arts councils in 5 states. And we are waiting for, of course, the prisons to reopen. And it's a time of acute anxiety on so many levels, but I think it offers us a great opportunity to expand what our horizon is in terms of advocacy. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Alma. Sabra.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. Good to see some familiar faces here. I'm Sabra Williams. I'm an actor and an activist, and I was the founding director of the Actors Gang Prison Project and have been working, bringing arts programming inside prisons for prisons re-entry, children's prisons, and for correction and probation officers for about 15 years. 3 years ago now, I left the Actors Gang and started Creative Acts, which is a social justice arts organization. And right now we have 2 programs. One is a civic engagement arts workshop, Art Attacks, in our children's prisons. And the other is an insane virtual reality re-entry program in maximum prisons for people who've served life sentences.
Thank you, Sabra. And Wendy, Staggs.
Wendy, oops. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Wendy. I'm a returning citizen. I'm a published poet through the UCLA Women's Law Journal, and I am a member of the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, the California Coalition of Women Prisoners, a former teaching artist for the Actors Gang Prison Project, and I returned to society through finding healing through the way of art. And I believe in everything that every single person on this call is doing, and I am trying to myself stay involved with that, not only to put my hand back to the people that are still left behind, but to keep myself well out here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Wendy. Thanks for joining us. Don't be driving. And
I'm not, I'm parked.
And Wendy Jason, who's also a member of the team but couldn't join us today, she is the Justice Arts Coalition. So we're, as instructed earlier, if you have questions for anyone on the panel or a question that you want us to chat about or discuss or what, please type it in the chat room. And Melinda will be monitoring that and will funnel that to us. So just to get us going, so a lot has changed, team, since we last recorded this. And does anyone want to share how that affected their view of advocacy or whatever you want to share, just to get us going?
Okay, this is my life, so I guess I'm going to speak a little bit. I'm going to try and keep it brief. I would say that of a lifetime of being told, being gaslit, basically, being told that you're being radical, that can't possibly be true, all lives matter, you know, if you weren't so angry, people could hear, don't protest like this, no, don't protest like that, you know, to be called divisive when we're talking about race, all those things, for this moment to finally come over the death of yet another Black man by the police, I actually feel super optimistic. I think this is the best chance in a generation. of actual change. However, I will also say I'm speaking to you from stolen, looted Tofteland here in Los Angeles, which is a genocide that has not yet been recognized. So I think something, you know, I think the day will come, I hope the day will come, where people like me don't have to be out in front, that our white accomplices will be able to do the inside work that we've been doing for 400 plus years, and be able to be the people, because they really are the only people that can really make this deep change in the white supremacy in this country. It's an exciting moment. And it's also, I just have to also say, it's a moment of grief I know for a lot of Black people, and a moment of absolute exhaustion. We are exhausted from this work. So yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
Thank you, Sabra. Beautifully stated. Anyone else want to share their impact?
Hi, this is Alma. I'm thinking that, building on what Sabra just said, this is the moment to really push for universal health care and for living wages for people, so that they don't have to break their backs, neglecting their families, stressed out all the time, letting their kids do whatever they do. We don't have good education for everybody. We really need to raise the bar in terms of what our society is able to do for everybody. And I'm really excited to hear about this effort to divert money from policing to social services. It's an important moment for this to happen. And our communities have been so over-policed and terrorized by the police. It's interesting to read all these stories about the microaggression that afflicts Black people almost every day of their lives. You know, the fear of seeing a police car behind you. I had a policeman stop me for speeding a couple of years ago, and I was so upset that I got out of my car and tried to talk him out of it. And he told me very sternly, "Get back in your car." And then when he came to the car, he had the paper in his hand, so I knew that I hadn't been at all successful with my plea for leniency. And he said, "You know, you need to stay in your car. You know what could have happened to you." And it struck me with terror, because this is the kind of force that he was offering. You know, I wasn't behaving properly. And it was such an emotional, frightening moment. So I think that this is a really important moment for some real systemic change. About the people, the 2 million that are incarcerated, and some of them are being released earlier, you worry about the ones that are still there, that aren't getting any health care. Are they just consigned to being in a cell until they either get well or they don't? What is going on with them? I haven't heard anything about the healthcare for people inside. Maybe Wendy Staggs knows, or people that have been more directly involved right now. Anybody know?
Yeah, if there's anyone who can speak to that, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Well,
Hello?
I'm
sorry.
Go, Wendy.
Go ahead.
Wendy. You got called, girlfriend.
I just want to say that from the girls that I'm speaking to through email at CIW, while those units were locked down that other people had tested positive in, they were absolutely not getting health care. The only thing that was happening to them was they were being, their temperature was being taken twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. And we're not talking about just in COVID, we're talking about medical need on everyday access that they were not receiving. I cannot speak to the men's prison, but knowing how they dealt with this whole COVID thing, that is an everyday occurrence in the prison system. You're told constantly over and over, here, take an ibuprofen, here, take this. And you tell them that something's going on. And we just had a young woman die from not being able to breathe and they kept telling her, you're fine, but she wasn't fine. And I think that this is a testament to how the medical has not been updated or has not been adequate for the people who are living behind bars.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm going to let Kate ask her question, and then we'll get to Mary's question that was posted in the chat. Kate, go ahead.
I just wanted to offer about the medical situation. I was talking to a friend who's a returned citizen from Sing Sing the other day about Mr. Floyd's murder. And he said, you know, the same thing happens in here almost every day, but there's no cameras. And we all sort of know that, right? But I just wanted to amplify his voice in the room. And then the other thing is in Minnesota, here at the center of all the stuff, the ACLU is actually suing the Department of Corrections right now because of the medical situation since the pandemic has broken out, because they've been, you know, on lockdown within their housing units, but men who have tested positive are staying in cells with people who are negative, and regular sort of medical call-outs have been suspended for the duration because they don't want people walking down to through the hallways of the facility. So just wanted to share
that. Before we move on to the next question, does anyone have anything that they want to say that came up for them while Kate was speaking? Okay.
I guess I would say that we sent over 2,000 masks to CIW through a partnership we have with Mask Crusaders, and I'm not sure how many went to our ladies and how many went to the staff. And I hear that this is a common issue because they have no PPE, and once it gets sent in, it often goes to the staff, not to our brothers and sisters inside. So I'm going to find out, and I will let you know.
Yeah, that's so crazy because the virus doesn't discriminate based on guards or inmates, you know, so anyway.
I think Laurie, Melinda, Laurie, did you have something to add to that?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that what I've heard and I believe, you know, from before and since COVID-19 has hit the prisons, that there's a real reluctance to report an illness of any severity because you get put in the secured housing unit, which is the hole, also known as the hole. It's, you know, appropriately called the hole. And so, you know, it's just, and that's a horrible place that doesn't have any creature comforts. I mean, you know, you've got a few creature comforts in your housing unit, in your cell. You know, you've got your something to read or something to a pillow or something like that. So, you know, it's really unfortunate that our prison system is just so messed up that and I'm super curious, you know, is California still under receivership? They were supposed to clean up their medical act, you know, 10 years ago, and have they begun to really take that seriously? I know there's some beautiful hospital facilities. Every time I've walked through them, they're practically empty and they're crisp, they're super clean, but there aren't people there being cared for in the way that you would hope they are. So anyway, I don't know, it's a messed up system.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to touch on Mary's question because we don't have any more yet in the chat here, even though we're kind of going to touch on this at the end, so I don't want to get too involved. But to Mary's question, I think she's really asking a question of white folks, and like how do you understand Black Lives Matter? And I want to get to her question, but I also want to plug our June 15th session at this time, which is going to be for white folks to talk about anti-racism. And Scott and I are going to be facilitating that. If there's anybody who feels like they would be a really strong moderator, please send me a private message and I will connect with you, because we could use a third, probably somebody who has a lot of experience in this area, or more experience, because I think we're all learning together, and we just want to create an affinity space for white folks to talk through anti-racism. And that's going to be on June 15th. And I think that might be a really great space for this question. And just because I don't want to shift focus too much away from where we are now, but Mary, would you like to unmute yourself and speak to this question just a little bit more in terms of some direct question you might have for one of the advocacy panelists? I think you mentioned Laurie, perhaps?
Sure. Thank you. And it's just such a joy to see all the people on this call, because I haven't seen folks. Well, I got to see Alma and Laurie in January. Anyway, I'm based in Iowa. And so the question, and by the way, I could speak a little bit to that question about health. So in Iowa, we have a program called Liberal Arts Beyond Bars, and it's happening via computer. So the men that can get to the computer lab can communicate to us, kind of like what Wendy was talking about via email. And I did receive a very disturbing message about one of the men was mentioning that a young man had been sexually assaulted in the prison, and they put him in. They've done this before at this prison in Iowa, where they've put them in isolation. Like another man had tried to commit suicide, and they put him in isolation. And it's so concerning. And I don't know exactly from the outside how we can be a whistleblower when it comes to mental health within the prison. So that kind of relates to the earlier conversation, if anybody has any recommendations on that before I ask my other question.
Can I just say something really quick? I just want to say that while I was incarcerated, I found my bunkie hanging at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I saved her life. And it was a long process, but I was traumatized by it. She was traumatized. But 5 months after, like, my counselor had been trying to get a meritorious act, you know, for me helping her. And you know that all of the records had come up missing. Everything. There was no record of it whatsoever. The only thing that was present was her mental health, because she had been put on suicide watch. And of course, that is protected by the HIPAA laws, right? So if we have people on the inside that can't even get the records of what's occurring, think of how difficult it is for us on the outside to be a whistleblower or to bring attention, because they hide those things. They make it so it like never happened. So it's a very, very touchy situation. And I honestly wanted to say, I know this is crazy that I wanted to talk about it, but I honestly wanted to say I don't have an answer for that, because I've been on the side where things just disappear. And how are we on the outside with even less information or attachment to what's going on able to adequately advocate for them in that situation when they're hiding the things that are happening on the inside? It's a very difficult question. I don't even have an answer for it.
I mean, I hate to speak again, but I've been doing this exactly that for a long time. I think you have to make the relationships, it's a very strict hierarchy. So I realized after a few years that in order to disrupt a hierarchy like that, you have to make the relationships with the people who run the hierarchy. So for instance, when I get reports about that in juvie, I walked in and one of the girls had her arm broken by probation. So I immediately went to the director of probation I've been working with for a long time and said, can you please deal with this? And if they don't want to deal with it, then my job as an ally is to be public about it, right? To shame them into dealing with it if they won't deal with it on the inside. And then as far as the prison system goes, after many years, you know, people like Scott Budnick, myself, you know, can go to HQ, can go to the Secretary of Corrections and say, hey, you probably don't know this is happening, because why would you know? But this thing happened over here, and this incident happened over here, and this trans woman is in danger at this prison. And because of long relationships, they will do something, they will find out, also have a relationship with the correctional officers. union, which is another avenue. These are the kind of avenues you have to look for. But the most effective one that I had when I was at the Actors Gang, and now he's moved on, is the Inspector General of Prisons. Because if HQ don't do anything and you go to the Inspector General, that's the ombudsman for prisons. And so I made a relationship with that guy, and he actually would go in and make sure that they were doing what, resolving these issues. So I would just say there's nothing replaces engagement in a hierarchy like this. And it takes a long time to make those relationships. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, well, this particular situation, I've been in this prison for over 10 years, but the warden that was extremely supportive has retired in May, and there's an interim warden. So we're kind of back to square one with that, but we do have connections with the Department of Corrections. I'm not sure in Iowa if we have an inspector general, or the term that you use, Sabra, but we do have connections with the director, and I know what you mean, but I think we need to look into where all our connections are, because we've established great connections with different people. We just now have a new interim.
It's super delicate though, because if they think that, people who are your students are telling you stuff and then you're acting on that just randomly because they told you that's damaging to your programs. So you have to be very, very careful how you do it.
Absolutely.
We're fortunate in Michigan to have a couple of really strong advocates working on behalf of prisoners. Doug Chapka's Humanity for Prisoners program deals, he's probably, out of our 38,000 prisoners, he's probably dealing with 1,500 cases of abuse that come up, and he's very proactive and very vocal and very visible. So when we get information, Shakespeare Behind Bars gets information from inside, because I agree with Sabra, you take that stuff on and you're going to be gone, right? I give it to Doug. I just feed it to him. He's willing to stand and do that, and that's his job as advocacy too. So look for people in your state that are blogging about it, that are absolute bulldogs, that are going after that stuff, because you can protect yourself and your program, but get the information out. I send him information all the time. Please look into this prisoner. He's having these health issues and nobody's addressing them. He goes and takes care of it. He makes it visible. So look for that.
I have a question about whether, as arts advocates, we're able to help some people that we have maybe worked with directly in the past few years to help them get out faster, because there is so much pressure on these departments of corrections around the country and governors to release people now. And I'm just wondering if that's happening, if that's a role that we can engage in more proactively.
I have the same question. Yeah, Laurie.
Yeah, we've been writing letters of support for somebody who's been in prison for 37 years, I think. And he's going to get out. So, it's not Gary Harrell. Gary Harrell, he's a wonderful artist that really has a lot of work out there. I know Justice Arts Coalition has been promoting his wonderful prints and anyway, so we can't do a lot, but when we're asked, when we hear that somebody's going before the board, we can write a letter of support about the wonderful work that they've been doing, and if they've been, he's donated a lot of work to a lot of different areas, not just us, and disability, the Justice Arts Coalition, youth agencies and stuff like that. He's donated a lot of work that has helped to,
Is he at San Quentin?
He's at San Quentin.
I know that name. I might
have met him. You've met him.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering is,
sure,
if we can be more proactive, if we can exert some influence on the parole boards, on the governors, to give them a list of people that they should be looking at faster rather than waiting for their next time to come up for parole. I recall when we were at San Quentin with Mary Ann Carter, the chairman of the NEA, I asked one of the men do you think that people who are involved in the arts get out faster? And he said, yes, we see that. And so because it has such great influence on behavior and less discipline and how people get along and their new ambitions and sense about what they can do in the world, they present better pictures to the parole boards. But is there a way that we can try to pre-engineer this so that more people come up faster right now? Because there is pressure on them to reduce prison populations around the country.
I know that the Anti-Recidivism Coalition do this, ARC, that they do, Scott Budnick and the organization as a whole have a very long relationship with the past governor and also have a good relationship with this governor. And they definitely do put people in that they know, who they've been working with. And quite often I will also contact them as they are, able to make political moves, which a non-profit is difficult to do, and ask them to add people to their list, if that helps. And then very occasionally, I'll say her name, Leslie Van Outen, who is in her 50th year of being incarcerated because she was, I guess she's called one of the Manson women. She has been, you could not have done a better job inside prison than Leslie has. All the staff think she should be released. She's been found suitable 3 times, but because it's a notorious crime, no governor who wants to run for president is going to let her out. So for Leslie, even when we weren't really writing letters to people, because of what she's up against, I have supported her. I have gone to her hearings because I know she is up against something that is just insurmountable, even though she's done 50 years and hasn't had an infraction in nearly the entire time, not one 115. So, in that situation, I personally will do something.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question that kind of bubbles up after all of this dialogue for them? I mean, some of you have been pretty quiet.
This is Ashley Lucas from the Prison Creative Arts Project. I don't have a question per se, but in response to Alma's query about what we can do to get more people out right now, I don't know that this is specific to the COVID crisis or the current political moment, but one thing we have been doing at PCAP, as Sabra was describing, is that when people have a public hearing, when people have a moment in court, we've had a lot of resentencing hearings for juvenile lifers after the Miller case in the state of Michigan. And my students and I have been showing up in groups of sometimes 30 or 50 people just to fill the courtroom with support and to show, and they'll all wear a PCAP t-shirt or a University of Michigan t-shirt or something, so that when one of us who knows the person really well stands up and testifies, we can say, and all of these people in the crowd are here because they believe this person needs to come home. And so legally, it doesn't have, it's not the kind of impact that people have measured or studied, but in practice, I do think it gives judges and even prosecutors pause to see that many people in the courtroom standing in love and solidarity with somebody who's there. So if there's a chance to go public with it, sometimes the sheer numbers of people who want somebody home can help make a difference.
That was really helpful. Thank you. I'm going to piggyback my question, actually, because that's kind of where we are in terms of the sequence. Is like, okay, so maybe we can get people out, but what about the folks who are newly returned in this moment? Because I know during the call that you guys had, that everyone had, it came up that everyone sees a need for immediately dealing with some of the issues coming up around reentry, because folks, I don't know if it was maybe Wendy someone said that like folks are coming out and they're still like, restricted to their quarters or whatever because of social distancing. And I guess my question is, can anyone from the panel or in this space elaborate more on the situation for folks who are entering society again right now, and if there's any way we can help, whether it's organizations we can donate to, or ways that we can advocate. Who wants to take
I just want to say I want to say quickly, some of the things that I have run into that I have been able to help people with is because they have been, a lot of times when lifers come home, they have to go to transitional living. And because they have been put in transitional living and can't leave, I myself, with my own money, made hygiene bags with like a couple white t-shirts and undershirts, you know, and was able to find out what size undershirts or whatever they wore, socks. I mean, the simple things that when you come home, you want to wear new, right? You don't want to be stuck with the pair that you left state with. And it may sound so simple, but like $25 Walmart cards, because Walmart is open, Target is open. And even maybe finding transportation for them to go. It doesn't sound like a lot, but to these people, it's everything. You know, it's everything. Having their new things, having new things that they don't have to use after being in 30 years. It's just the only way that I've been able to acknowledge the fact that I love you and I know you're home, and I don't want you to think that people aren't thinking about you, you know, and it's been so simple, and I can only do so much, you know, because I just bought a home and I'm trying to, but even a $25 gift card makes them feel like somebody is thinking about them. You know, a hygiene bag, those simple things for now may be the only things that we can do until they can come out and they're not on, you know, social distancing and stay home and all these things.
I know that you probably have longstanding relationships with these institutions, but for folks who are kind of like stuck in their hometown and want to help in that way, do you have a suggestion of a starting point, of a place to figure out how to get those resources into the hands of people who need them? Is that a stupid question?
No, it's not a stupid question at all. In fact, you can find recovery programs that are accepting people that are coming home from prison. Not all recovery homes have those contracts. FOTEP goes to a few different ones here in San Bernardino County, but if you have a relationship with CDCR or with the Department of Corrections in your state, you can find out where their contracts are, and you can even go donate 50 bags, and they will give those bags to those people when they come home, because all programs accept donations, but you can specify that the donations are specifically for people coming home, and they will keep them for them. I mean, the programs that I've dealt with have, they've kept them just for specifically for the people that are coming home.
That was very helpful. Thank you. I'm going to do that. We're at 5:53 and we have about 7 minutes left on the call. Should I pass this over to Curt and Scott, or does anyone want to jump in with a last minute question or a thought that they'd like to share? Okay.
May I just, I'm sorry, I know I've spoke a few times, but can I just say something really quick about like the protesting and everything that's been going on?
You can say anything you want, Wendy.
From personal, so when I was in high school, I kissed a young African-American boy in the quad, right? And I had the dean call me in and tell me that I should never do that again, that I was told that I could never do that again in public at our school. And I had been taught by my mom that all of us bleed the same, all of us hurt the same. And I've found that even in my mom's belief that we don't all hurt the same, because the things that have been happening to the Black and brown communities are things that whites have not experienced, okay? And I wanna say, I wanna acknowledge here in this space that I don't know the pain that you're going through, but I will be here to be on your side and to stand up for you. And I believe also that this is the time, it's at the present. This is when we have to do it. And when my daughter came to me and said, Mom, should I go to this protest? And I thought, well, what is my opportunity to teach her, you know? And so she was scared that something may happen. And ironically enough, we did not go, but something did happen. People got arrested and people got hurt, and a man got killed. And I thought, gosh, you know, I want to teach her the right thing, but I also don't want to put her in danger's way. So as I just want to say, as myself, as a previously incarcerated person, but as a white woman, I want people to know that I am here to support them in the best way that I know how. And I don't always know that I do that right, but I'm trying. That's all I want to say.
You do it right, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to echo your sentiment that the organizers of this conference, a lot of us are white. We're going to do the hard work of anti-racism within ourselves and within this network, because we're going to root out white supremacy from its roots, you know. And I just want you all here to know that we are together. And we're going to get through this, and we're going to talk about it, especially you white folks and me. We're going to get together. We're going to talk about anti-racism. It's not going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be useful, and I think community building. And I think it's absolutely essential that we have the space to do this work together. And we here at the conference are going to make sure that space is created for that work to happen.
Thank you.
I want to make sure too that we understand that the voices to be heard at this time are the Black and brown communities. Like, I don't want to speak for them. I just want to stand behind them and support them, because they are the ones who need to be heard. And it would be like having something on being formerly incarcerated, but not including the formerly incarcerated voice, right? So I want to make sure that we're clear that at this time, it is the Black and brown communities who have the right to speak, and that we are standing behind them and supporting them in that.
Mary.
I would completely agree with everything that Wendy has said. And coming from someone in a Plains state where that is highly, very white, and the history of disproportionate number of people of color in the prison system is historically extremely high. And I'm coming from a place where I grew up in Kansas, so I'm from Kansas to Iowa, so I'm completely been surrounded by the Plains state mentality, including my own personal, I know this is going to be recorded wherever, but my own family, is that I currently, and I really look forward to this next event that you're planning, is what I call micro communal peace building, where I have conversations as neutrally as possible, asking, how do you understand Black Lives Matter? Because I think that's the root of why we haven't moved forward from the 1960s, is whites haven't really understood it. I understood it when Brian Stevenson came to this campus when his book Just Mercy first came out, and he explained it. Like, oh, of course. But growing up where I didn't have that history, you know, I go to my colleague's amazing performance he did on campus about jazz and the fight for civil rights, and learned even new things at that jazz performance. So, and I think a lot of white people are learning to look into and educate ourselves, which is absolutely important, but we also need to have, and I'm still learning how to, but those conversations. How do you understand Black lives? And I'm to the point where anybody white that I work with, I almost did it at the dentist today, but I didn't quite get all the way through the conversation before we got interrupted to something else about getting a crown put on my, permanent crown put on my root canal that was done before we went to sheltering. But anyway, how do you understand Black Lives Matter? And if someone doesn't really get it, like if it's someone I'm paying to come into my home to help with something, then I don't want to hire them. I want to, does that make sense? So I think that we've got to really have these conversations with our white colleagues. At least I need to. So I know we're about out of time, but since I'm talking, I want to just give a little bit. If anybody has an interest in prison choirs, I am giving a webinar through an organization in Canada. The organization is called Room 217, based in Ontario. Their whole focus is on music and care. I signed up to do this webinar over a year ago, and now all this stuff is coming in, and I'm needing to completely revamp the whole topic. But if you have any interest, I'm happy to put the information in the group chat. You just have to register in advance. It's Wednesday, 2:30 Eastern time. No, 2:30 Central time. 3:30 Eastern time. So get your time zone worked out.
Mary, can you just put that in the chat? So
I'll find it and do that. Thank you, Curt.
So as one of the elder cockers in the group, one of three, there are three of us. I'm the youngest of the three of us. I just want to point that out. I am a product of the 60s. My draft number was 29. I was very fortunate that 3 months before I would have been drafted, my college deferment would have been up, the draft ended. I was blessed, you know. I didn't have to go, but family went, died, friends went, died, and I've dealt with vets in prison for 25 years. The first vets, PTSD that I encountered in prison were Vietnam vets. And so I am abundantly hopeful because back then I marched, I got beaten, arrested, all of that stuff. I did all of that stuff, right? And then I thought, oh, good, okay, we're done with that. And now my children won't have to go through it. And it's heartbreaking because my children are going through it and my grandchildren will go through it. And so we are taking very seriously this issue about racism and about the fact that racism is the fundamental underbelly scourge that leads to all of our social ills. Every one of them are underscored by racism. I, like Mary, was raised in the plains in North Dakota. So I have it in, again, I just have ignorant whites who are racist, right? They don't think they're racist. And it's like, no, actually, you're racist. And so we white folk, I love from the TCG, white folk broke it, white folk got to fix it. I realize it's all of us, but I am so optimistic when I look at the millions and millions of protesters that I see. What do I see? I see white folk, I see old folk, young folk, I see black folk, brown folk, yellow folk. I see kids, I see young people, I see old people. I'm more hopeful now than I've ever been that we can take care of this, because come November we're kicking 45 and his cronies out, but it's going to take so much work to reclaim. It's going to take so much work, but the energy is there, the youth energy is there. I mean, I'm like Martin Luther King, you know, I'm at the top of the mountain and I may not, I can see it. I may not be there with you because I'm not going to live that long, but by God, we're going to do it this time. So we are taking extremely seriously this issue of, I wish to God I was in the circle right now, because my circle in Michigan is made up of mostly non-Caucasians, right? Because I don't think of myself as a racist at all, but I know that there's something there, and I wish I could just say to them, please be honest with me. Tell me where do I err? Where? Tell me, because I want to know, and I don't want you to pull any punches, but I can't be there. So I have to be here on the outside with all of you, and we're gonna do it. Scott, you want to come up or Alma, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Well, I just want to share that I listened to a Zoom presentation on Saturday. It was presented by a woman named Suchi Ranman. Maybe some of you know her. She works at Norco in California. And people that she was working with as a dancer sent out choreography that they had written from their cells. And it was written on paper, and they had drawings, and she had two colleagues with her sort of dancing the moves and just doing whatever the choreographers inside suggested that they could be doing to enact their choreography. It was wonderful. It was really great. And so I thought that I would share that with all of you. Curt, you read a poem that somebody wrote inside. And so to be able to allow people to express, even now, even in these conditions, and put their voices out there is just so meaningful.
Thank you, Alma. Yeah, actually, Larry Lucas, who wrote that poem, is outside and has been outside for a lot of years. there's so much stuff that's coming from the inside to the outside too, and giving voice to it's so important. Scott, you want to come in?
Yeah, sure. So everything that everyone's been saying, that's really at the front of our minds right now. And we want and we demand to be part of that change. And I heard everything that Wendy said about including Black and brown voices and letting them take the lead. But at this moment, from all the listening that I've been doing, it's about us. It's about white folk. It's about us confronting these white supremacist power structures in the moment, because our POC friends are exhausted from this fight, and I can't even fathom the fatigue of just spinning the wheels and spinning the wheels and spinning the wheels. And we are the people that are the silent majority, so to speak. Not to bring that back to Nixon. God, apologies for that. But it's up to us to support our friends in this moment and to be that change. I'm committing myself to a process of learning publicly. That's why this next session next week is all about anti-racism resources and sharing, for us to just kind of workshop what this looks like, the different levels of assimilation and integration of white supremacy into our own individual practice as well as our organizational practice without even realizing it. So it will be a tough conversation for us to have, but it's necessary, it's vital, and I think everyone who's in on this chat is with me on that. So with that in mind, I'm going to share right now in the chat the opening plenary for the Theater Communications Group Conference that just happened. I think it was last Tuesday. TCG was amazing. They first off had to bring their entire conference online in just a few weeks because of COVID. And then 3 or 4 days before the conference starts, the George Floyd tape comes out, and they completely shifted on a dime and reprogrammed their conference to be all about BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of colors, advocacy. And so the entire plenary session, all the breakouts were centered around how we can advocate at this moment. So I would like to take some of the lessons that I learned in those sessions and bring them to this network in an attempt to just bring us together around this sort of issue and how we tackle it in kind of a harsh personal interrogation. So I've just dropped the link to that opening plenary. I'll bring it also to the Shakespeare in Prisons Network Facebook page, which if you're not a member of that and you're on Facebook, please join us there. I'll also ship this out with email, my email list as well, along with Ashley Lucas's call for papers, which she sent me like 3 weeks ago. And I just am remembering that I didn't send out to you guys. So thank you for that. We will follow up with that workshop. It'll be next Monday at 5 o'clock Eastern time. But in the meantime, blessings and peace. Yes.
Yeah. Sabra?
Alma and I know Sabra had something they wanted to say, and then I will quickly tack on at the end.
Great.
Alma? I don't see.
Well, I just wanted to appreciate what you're saying, Scott, and I think all this introspection and silent majority work is cool. Y'all are becoming a silent minority, if you hadn't noticed. And so I just want to echo what Wendy, I think Wendy's left, but nothing about us without us, right? We all need to solve this problem together. And we all need to confront our inadequacy. I mean, many of us have adjusted and adapted, whatever the color of our skin is, we're going along with it because we see the benefits of whatever is waiting for us, whether it's Social Security or the hopefully not aging center or whatever it is. So we're getting along. So you know, we need to think too about what kind of legacy we're leaving for our children. And we need to think about Mother Earth, because she's going to have the last word on all of this. If we don't figure out how to work together, there may not be any future generations to enjoy anything.
Thank you.
All I got. That's all I got. I'm done.
And Alma, if I can just stay right there, never would I ever think of leaving, anyone out of this conversation. But it's on us. I feel so much to lift this weight off our friends. Sorry, Sabra.
No, that's fine. I guess I just wanted to say that this is work that we have to do for generations, right? So in terms of white people doing this work, you're also going to have to teach your children. This is not, you're going to be super tired. It's very difficult work. You're going to make mistakes, just like we are all going to make mistakes. And I think that quite often when we make a mistake that hurts or feels like super uncomfortable, that we want to walk away. But I think all of us here who work in prison ask our partners inside to feel uncomfortable, to learn new tools, to make change, to self-reflect. So we have to do it. We have to do it too, especially if we're asking them to do it. And so like one suggestion would be, when you see your Black friends on social media getting attacked or hearing like all lives matter, if you jump in, you can say the same thing I can say, that they can't hear me and they can hear you. That's the way to be an ally. Jump in and protect your people of color who are friends and do the work, so that they don't have to do it, is one just practical thing. And then the other thing I'll say is that so many organizations and theater companies have issued statements about George Floyd and about Black Lives Matter. I want you to know that we're watching what actual action you take. Who is on your boards? Who has the power in your organizations? Because a lot of times what I've seen, and I'm just going to say the bitter truth right here, is in order to get funding, people include their alumni from prison as their diversity. That is bullshit. And we're going to call that out. So if you are going to issue a statement, that means that you have made a commitment, and we will be watching you to make sure, I'm not talking about you on this call, I'm talking about you in the world, to make sure that your boards, the people who have power, the people who make decisions, are the people who are most impacted. And I just wanted to put that out there because I saw yet another organization, a funder today, issue another statement. And I'm putting that out there.
I just want to jump on that and just say yes, 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 yes to everything you just said. And everything I'm hearing, honestly, like to be a voice of encouragement to this room, to say that what is exciting to me in this moment is that we finally see the potential to find partnership in our white brothers and sisters, that we've been, in my opinion, carrying the load for far too long in more ways than one, right? Like, so to have people who do the work and begin to understand their effect in the world, learned most of it for most people, but to really take the time with yourself first as a human being, and then look at the circles that you are part of after that, and then begin to apply and bring people along with you. I think that's the journey. Like, this is long work, and that we should, I think as a network, really consider that this conversation that you all will have is going to be the first, right? Because the first one is probably going to be like, oh my God, I'm horrible, or whatever you guys are thinking. I don't know. I'm just pretending that I know. But that's the first. That's the starting point, right? And then you're going to follow, and you're going to be like, hey, what are the things that kind of really bubbled up to the top that felt actionable about that? What are the things that I've owned up to in the process? What are the pieces of conversation that really made me think differently about my footprint in the world, right? Like, that's the thing that we're going to do, and that we can be a network to help support each other in both movements, because this is a movement too, So I think I just want to say the last thing is just to think about, when we get to the part where we're talking about systems, like, we have to also try to take a step back and look at our systems, because I truly believe they are working the way they are designed to work, right? So that we can't be wedging into this sort of social justice moment and trying to make the thing you know, like pushing it up into what already exists, right? So it, again, humbling process, because then that means, oh, maybe the way this thing is working isn't actually the way that matches with my vision or my values in the world or in my organization, right? So I'm done talking, but I just wanted to say that. And also to say that I think we should be thinking about holding space also for our people of color and our returned citizens as a part of this network. This is what we do. It is an entire ecosystem that we are part of. And I'm encouraged, very encouraged that we all can do that, and we can do that together. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
That's definitely the plan.
Well, we're about 15 minutes over time now, so if anyone has any final words, I think we're going to plan to leave the call open for a little while in case